Intussusception. Intussusception.
I didn't vlog at all yesterday. Yesterday morning at around 6:30, I woke up with one of those severe pain episodes again. I kept getting worse, and then my blood pressure was starting to not look very good. It was dropping, and it just kept, because it kept progressing. By 10:30ish, we called 911, and I was brought to the emergency room. By the time I got to the emergency room, I had a low-grade fever. They did labs because we were thinking something was wrong with the resection. But within another couple hours, then my temperature started going up, 101, 102. They did more labs, and they were checking all the sepsis markers.
Your lactate was 1.6, then it went to 2.2.
Then my procalcitonin was 1.18. Normal is 0.1 or less. They did a CT, and the CT showed where it appeared my intestine was collapsed in on itself, but they didn't know if it was a true picture or if it was peristalsis occurring right in that moment. And there is a small pocket of fluid near the resection, which is where the majority of my pain is. The guy also did an ultrasound prior to the CT, and touching that area just sends me off the table. I ended up getting admitted to the cardiac ICU because my temperature just kept progressing to 103.4, and everything was getting worse, like my resting pulse was in the 130s and 40s. But at this point, surgery doesn't want to operate because they don't have a clear picture. The plan is to wait for blood cultures, and if it happens to be a gut bacteria, then we are going to pursue imaging with contrast, even though it will send me into a mast cell flare. I finally said I was willing to do the contrast because my whole life they just preached to me about how they can never see anything because I don't use contrast, because I don't tolerate it. And the one time I'm willing to do contrast and make myself sicker, then they backtrack and say, oh, well, you can't really see that much more. I'm thinking that they know there's a problem. They're just scared. They don't want to take me back to the operating room, and they don't want to set me off with the testing either. They started me on 2 different antibiotics. After the first antibiotic, that seemed to have helped. My lactate was 2.2, and it went back down to 1.3. My temperature went from 103.4, and now it is 97.7. And I've been making steady improvements. My resting pulse is back in the 80s and 90s and low 100s instead of 120s, 130s, 140s, and 150s. The pain is still there, but it's not as severe. We know there's a blood infection present, we just don't know why. Is it coming from my line, or is it coming from something leaking into my abdominal cavity from the resection not holding? I'm kind of frustrated because we're at a standstill. I just know something's not right. They're too afraid. I kind of had it out with the surgeon. But I think I did it nicely. I was just telling them that I'm frustrated because I feel like they're just covering up a problem. They're just throwing antibiotics at me. Yeah, everyone's like, okay, you're fine now. Which I do feel a lot better, other than my stomach. But even that feels a lot better. But I feel like as soon as I stop antibiotics again, the problem's just going to return if they don't find the source. If the source happens to be from my gut, like we're suspecting. Because that's where my pain is. There was a TPN incident, bless you, over a week ago. My TPN bag started leaking, but it was right at the beginning of the taper up, and we noticed it when 0.7 had been infused. So nothing even had gotten into me yet. So I guess that is a possibility as well. But yeah, right now we're just gonna wait on cultures. They ordered an abdominal series to see if that will show more information. And I'm about to go down for that now. It's been over 24 hours and no culture growth.
Is this Barb? Hey, Barb.
No, this is YouTube.
Oh.
You can say, hi, YouTube.
Hi, YouTube.
What's he watching? I don't know how he stays entertained by the things that he does.
It's a fly tying tutorial.
That makes you sound like a redneck hillbilly.
Redneck hillbillies just don't know anything about fly fishing. I never once in my entire life seen a redneck pick up a fly rod. I've seen him pick up a little spinning rod to a little beetle spin or something, throw it out there, try to catch trout. But that ain't no fun.
I'm having a wee bit of a reaction to my Solu-Cortef. I normally have to dilute all of my meds quite a bit, and most of them I cannot push. I have to run them over like an hour with the dilution, and tonight's nurse did not dilute it as much. Solu-Cortef is one of the few meds I can actually push, but it's diluted into 10 mLs of saline or more, and she only diluted it in 4 mLs of saline, and it was a higher dose than normal because I'm stress dosing right now. I'm feeling the effects, rashy and bone pain. But it used to be that I would have to run my Solu-Cortef diluted in like 60 mLs of saline and ran over an hour, or else I'd go into like a full-blown fit. And now I don't go into a full-blown fit, and I can push it, so we've made progress there. I still can't push Pepsid and stuff like that. That's still runs over an hour. With my IV antibiotics, like Grosephin, they dilute that into 200 mLs and run it over an hour. My Zyvox, which is a good substitute broad-spectrum antibiotic in place of Vanc, that runs over 2 hours with 250 mLs of saline. Well, how do you like our fancy room?
I'm happy.
I was moved to a positive pressure room. My last room was a negative pressure, but with the positive pressure, it keeps smells and stuff in the air out. So when the door is opened, nothing can get inside. But in the negative pressure, nothing can get outside when the door is open, but stuff can still go in. And that was not good because it was bringing in bleach and people's Downy laundry detergent that hadn't even come in, that I hadn't even seen. So we decided to change rooms. My cultures have been growing for over 24 hours now. They have not been able to locate the bacteria. My vitals are still okay, but they switched my antibiotic from Rocephin, which seemed to have made most of the difference. I only got 1 dose of that in the ER, to Zyvox, and today I'm feeling worse than yesterday. And my mast cells are very angry. My hands are all swelled up. My procalcitonin is up to a 2, so that's concerning because that's getting worse. And they still haven't been able to find the source of the infection. Like, we were almost positive that it was a blood infection. I wanted to try to go home today, but now that my labs are going in the opposite direction than I wanted it to, I'm probably gonna have to stay here. I figured I could do antibiotics and lay in bed at home, and they could call if the culture decided to grow anything, but I don't know what the plan is now. We thought I had C. diff again, but that doesn't seem to be the case because now the diarrhea has slowed down. And I know with C. diff, you're going every couple minutes because that's how I was last time. The other doctor had said that at first he didn't think it was C. diff either this time because I hadn't went to the bathroom in over a week, 8 days or something like that. And it could have been normal for me to have some bowel issues because my stomach pain was so bad. I'm thinking maybe I had some sort of obstruction and it kind of just let loose then eventually, because the stomach pain has improved. I don't know if it was out of it from the antibiotics. They got my x-ray. My small bowel is still dilated. The x-ray shows an ileus, so like always, same old story. My small bowel is so dilated that it's like moved into the spot where my colon used to be, which is very weird. But that's just discouraging to me because I'm on TPN. I haven't been eating. All I've done is flush my J tube with some water, like 10-15 mLs a day, once a day. And I want to be able to start my tube feeds back. I hate TPN. The infection risk sucks, but I'm thankful for it because it does keep me alive. Everyone is entertained with my stomach sounds at the moment.
Listen right there.
I don't know.
You hear it?
Mm-hmm.
But then if you come up here, you hear normal bowel sounds. That's what it's supposed to sound like. I don't know what that little chirp is down there. Not quite sure how to document that.
Oh.
It's this TPN. The last admission, when I kept having dizziness and vertigo, that was out of nowhere. I kept blaming it on the fentanyl or the antibiotics. Turns out it was the hospital's TPN. When I switched to the home health pharmacy's TPN, the dizziness and stuff subsided, but we ran out of our home TPN, and I can't have home health make a new bag because that's double billing. So once I resumed the hospital's TPN, good morning, the dizziness came back. We are off the CAT scan. I generally hide under the covers as I am toted through the hospital to avoid the scent triggers and bleach and germs. I wonder if people look at me under here like I'm crazy.
Probably. We're going home. What am I supposed to do?
Because I never even explained what happened.
Well, why do you need me?
Because I can't say the word.
Intussusception. Think Intussusception. No. Intussusception. Intussusception.
You can't say it either.
Intussusception.
Intussusception.
Yeah. Intussusception.
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 Okay. A couple days ago when I had come into the ER, they found where like part of my intestine was like collapsed on top of another part of my intestine. And so emergency surgery came in saying that they might have to take me back to surgery, but then they had other surgeons come in and say that absolutely not.
They said it was the peristalsis of the intestines caught in that moment in time as it was contracting.
So they finally consulted GI, and the GI doctor came in and he sat down with another radiologist and said that that CT scan was very abnormal and it was what it originally caught, which was the intussusception, where one part of the intestine telescopes in on the other. At first, that particular GI doctor was a bit confrontational, and I don't think he entirely understood the mast cell portion of all of this. He was saying like, why can't you eat? Who said? Who did this? Da, 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 da. And so we were kind of taken back, and the nurse was in the room and she was just like, and so he basically at that point wanted me to pull out my GJ, not even put a G-tube in a stoma, just let it close, even though my GI doctor, regular GI doctor, had just had me continuous draining through the G-tube, and he just said I needed to eat, and all will be well in the world. And if I can't eat, then I need to remove this GJ because that foreign object in
Because the tube
the
is so long.
intestine, because the tube is threaded in so long, since it is a GJ, that could be causing the intussusception. We didn't know quite who to believe because the surgeon was telling us one thing because he promised that it was nothing
Just a tube.
sinister, I guess, and kind of a fluke. And so then this guy, who doesn't seem to know much about my diagnosis, is telling me the complete opposite. And what happens with an intussusception is it causes damage to the bowel. Yeah, because it gets sucked up inside, so it can cause ulcerations, like micro tears. And then your gut bacteria permeates those ulcerated area, and it can cause an infection, which is why I had the 103 fever and infection symptoms. But yet my white count was normal. That's another thing. Although when I've had actual like blood infections in the past, my white count has always been like up there, and this time it stayed normal. So with intussusception, your white count does not get elevated. We thought I had caught C. diff again because 6 to 12 hours after I was having the frequent,
Bathroom visits.
bathroom visits. But that for intussusception, as soon as it fixes itself, because sometimes it requires surgical intervention and sometimes it doesn't, that normally happens. Another symptom of intussusception is hypovolemic shock, and so that explains why I am getting 3.5 liters of fluid a day and I'm still showing signs of dehydration, and why I went into hypovolemic shock, because apparently this had happened a couple weeks ago too. But seems to be a frequent occurrence. Now we have to try to figure out what exactly is causing my bowels to act like this. We know that the chronic dilation from the pseudo-obstructions was causing it, but could my GJ being threaded through there be making something worse?
You see what I'm saying?
Maybe. It's a possibility. He ordered today another non-contrast CT just to see if the intussusception has resolved on its own, or if it was still there. It was gone, of course, we knew, because I'm not having the same pain symptoms. The first time of the CT scan, my small bowel was dilated to 4 centimeters, and normal small bowel is 2 centimeters. But he came in to let us know that, and he was a completely changed man. I'm not sure who he talked to, but whoever he did, it was very enlightening. And at the end, he even prayed with my mom and I. And what's really weird is, and like in Florida, you would never have a doctor come do that. But
We've had 2 just today.
yeah, their doctor we saw before, this GI doctor was the hospitalist on my case, he prayed with us too. And so that was nice. So
I wonder if they're looking at your blog.
maybe, I don't know. Overall, it was a good experience, I guess, because we completely changed and we didn't have to deal with that stress. I'm getting discharged now that my vitals are stable. I will have another 8 doses of Rosefin to deal with the infection aftermath, and it is safer for me to be at home from a mast cell standpoint. We are also considering small intestine bacterial overgrowth, which I think people put too much blame on symptoms, in my opinion, but we are thinking that perhaps, or this GI doctor was saying that perhaps an overgrowth of small bowel bacteria could be contributing to the air in my intestines. And a couple of years ago at the Mayo Clinic, I tried to do the breath test for the small bowel bacterial overgrowth, and we had to abort it because it did not go well drinking the glucose solution. So he thinks it might be safer just to treat for it directly rather than trying to do the test again. And then we can also entertain doing a small bowel series with an MRI, but we're going to discuss that with my regular GI doctor. Since nothing is emergent and pressing right now, we've just got to try to make sure this isn't going to happen again. are going home.
We're on our way home. It's been a lot this morning. I can't even tell you. It has been such a humbling experience.
Look
Yeah.
how excited Mr. Teddy Graham is.
Yes, we're home. We're home. Okay.
He wants to be held.
Okay, Mama hold to you. Yes, Mama, him's hold.
Can you say bye, Teddy?
Teddy, say bye.
To the vlog?
Give sissy kisses.
Can you say bye-bye?